Check this out. Today we're talking about stock shafts versus aftermarket shafts and everything you need to know so that you can make a good buying decision and not have your club end up on eBay or in your garage collecting dust. This is important. So most of the things we talk about are really just far different than what you'll get on mainstream golf media, and that's the point. These are the things you need to know. If you're going to buy a new driver, though, you better know the difference between the stock shafts that could possibly be hanging from the rack at your local big box store all the way down to the really fancy, cool, some hidden graphics that are on some of the higher end shafts, and whether or not those fit you or if we should just hang on that stuff for PGA Tour players. So Brad, tell the people a story.
Well, you can even find somebody to help you along the way as well, too. So getting a fitter to obviously help you make those decisions can speed that up a ton.
The only good decision, Brad.
So let's talk about the difference between the shafts, though.
Yep.
Because anymore now, they're all painted to look the same. You have a couple you're holding there that look really identical. We'll talk about those in a second. But even though they're painted the same, they may say the same words on them, they can be very different shafts.
Yep.
Doesn't mean one's bad or better than the other one. We have two shafts up here that almost look identical. But one of those is a stock shaft, which would be just the kind of no upcharge shaft you get in a club from the manufacturer. And the other one being the one that's built better than the PGA Tour player, like you mentioned. So let's take a look at these two and talk about what separates them. So on the left, we have a hazardous shaft. The right, we also have a hazardous. But there's two things that really stand out about the difference. And if we zoom in on the labels, you can really see what that is. This one has 800 Ts.
800 Ts?
And that's going to be the key between this one. If we look at the other,
that was good.
It's got 1100.
Good delivery.
I don't know.
Must be better.
300 Ts more has to be better. So what this is showing you is just the difference in the material. And that's going to be really with your stock shafts. Typically, they're taking an aftermarket shaft, which would be the T1100 version of this hazardous. The club manufacturer then says, all right, let's take this shaft, but make it at a lower price point typically. Try to make it as similar as you can, but typically they come out, they're not as stiff, they're typically lighter. But in all honesty, many times it's probably better for the average golfer.
Well, exactly. It doesn't, because of stock shaft, back to that point, it doesn't mean that it's not better for you.
Yeah, it just means it's different.
Super expensive ones that are made of different materials that are more costly, but they're just different for different people.
And so this one, T800, is just basically showing you the materials that it was made with. The T1100, again, that's just the materials that shaft was made with. This one also has a cool little handcrafted logo that goes along with it, and those are usually the tell signs of a genuine aftermarket shaft compared to like your OEM stock shaft.
I still gotta say that the 800 Ts and the 1100 Ts, that was good for you. Normally you force these a little too much.
Secret of the pros.
That one was pretty good.
So we know the difference in that one. If we even back it up a few, let's just talk about these two particular shafts as a comparison. The shaft on the right, the actual aftermarket version, when that came out, it was one of the stiffest, like lowest spin, lowest launching shafts on the market.
Yeah, I can't think of more than a handful of people off the top of my head that would really
probably even on
well.
the PGA Tour, there weren't too many guys that actually needed that.
You couldn't hand that to Jordan Spieth in an X and say good luck, or I suppose that's what you would be doing. Here, Jordan,
good luck.
Best of luck. This will get really high into the air.
He would probably even hit it shorter compared to, again, your average golfer swinging,
Correct.
maybe 90. They definitely couldn't handle that. The model on the left came out much softer, spun the ball more, which, again, relative to that one on the right, for most people is going to be the better option.
That's tricky, though. You see how they look exactly the same. So again, a fitter can help you through this experiment and get a good experience.
They used to make it easier too. We'll take a look at a second at some shafts from yesteryear. This is why it's important to either educate yourself or even easier, get with a fitter that really knows the difference.
Do these have more Ts?
There's no Ts in this one. We have three different colors though.
They're different. There's
so
3 Ts.
Fujikura Ventus shaft here, you're holding those 3 shafts in your hands.
Yep.
One of those is not like the others though, right?
That's
So
correct.
I want you to explain this one. What's the telltale sign for this particular model that lets us know genuine aftermarket shaft versus the OEM stock version of the same shaft?
Well, let's start just up at the grip, because before you could see the handcrafted logo up here. That's where it was, and it's maybe an inch big, and that was the giveaway. All of these, all the way down to where my hand is on the shaft, look exactly the same, sans the color choices. But down here at the tip of the shaft, I have 2 of them that say Velocor and one that is just the blank red one.
Yep, so the blank red one, this is the one that is the OEM stock, not like the other.
Tricky.
Again, that one's actually probably going to be better, at least compared to the black. The black Ventus you have there is similar to that T1100, really stiff, really heavy. Most people, that's not what they need.
Yeah, this
the
one's
red
a 7X. serious player shaft on that one.
So that red one's actually just going to be the stock one that comes in a driver. For most people, probably is going to be a good bet. Still need to get with somebody to test them out. But just as Nick mentioned, these particular ones have this little Velocor logo down towards the tip section. That's just kind of the patented technology that's in the shaft. So the shafts are not better or worse, but they are different. And I keep stressing that point.
Yeah, I might even go so far as personally, I would probably play this black one. You think? I haven't hit this Ventus shaft.
Black or blue for you is probably a good fit.
Yeah, 7X, black one, and then I'd probably just use like a 10.5 driver. I could make that work. If I were going to use the stock red one, which is higher launching, this is a 50-gram shaft-ish. I could still get this in an X if they even make it, or get an S and just tip the shaft and make it so stiff anyway. And then I'd probably go down in a loft maybe to like an 8.5, and I could make this work.
Yeah.
But both of those can be accomplished if you know what you're doing. If you're just grabbing your buddy's club and swinging it, good luck. But all of these shafts are fine. I could play golf with all of them.
Yeah, you could definitely make the red one work. It's going to take a little bit of aftermarket craftsmanship there to get there, but that's what, again, a fitter is going to help you out with that process.
That's what this is, by the way. It's magic. Did you get that, producer Eric?
All right, ready? Here's the next one.
Okay.
So we have 3 over here. These are your Tensai orange, and we have 3 different models. I bet you can get this one right again.
They're kind of heavy.
One of those is a genuine aftermarket Ventus, or excuse me, Tensai. 2 of those would be just your OEM stocks. I think one of those probably stands out as being very different. The one with the silver bottom.
It does. That paint scheme is
that
totally
one's
different.
painted totally different. The orange isn't even the same color.
No.
So same story. It's made to be a similar kind of profile to those other ones, but it's really just different.
Mitsubishi Chemical, 60 grams, regular shaft.
Different
80
paint,
to 90% of the people that walk in and want a tailor-made driver could get fit into this. We were even messing around with a driver with the white shaft, just the stock. Nothing fancy with the materials, and we were driving that just fine.
Yeah, it could be fine for people. Again, that's why you have to just test it out. But now you have 2 that are painted very much the same now. So the paint, the orange paint is the exact same color. The shaft is black the whole way through, but just like the other shafts we've seen, there is one, actually even 2, kind of telltale signs on that particular one that differentiates the 2. That's going to be another small logo, just like we saw in the past, up towards the butt section of these ones.
So this one has the W tungsten, the pre-preg on this one. That's the difference.
So no T's on that one. Well, we have tungsten. There's a T there.
There is.
So there's that, and then some of the painting in the Tensai CK part. I believe one of them has an orange letter, one of them doesn't.
It does.
So you get some tiny little telltale signs there, but for your average consumer, you walk in, you see that on the shelf, and you think that's the same thing that, say, Ricky Fowler's playing that for a while. Tiger had it once upon a time. You think it's the same shaft, and it's just not. But coming back to the point, average golfer probably doesn't need the shaft that Ricky and Tiger play, and they need what's much more in your right hand, which is typically a little bit lighter, plays a little bit softer than the comparison. So here's just the blown up version then of those 2. So you can see everything looks the same. In the non-genuine aftermarket, the K is painted orange. I have a silver orange down here. Easier to spot out though is that W logo that Nick had mentioned before. And that's, again, just pretty much designating some of the materials that are used in that shaft.
See how quietly I laid that down?
The OEM shafts are a little quieter too.
Yeah, vibrates less.
So we'll take a walk down memory lane though. This used to be really easy though. Back in the day, whenever they would just simply have a, say, Titleist shaft, and it would say Titleist on it. That's a very easy way to spot out a shaft that is not aftermarket. I think this came in the 975D.
That sounds right, yeah.
So lightweight shaft, 65 grams, again, probably closer to what most people need. Even once manufacturers did start getting away from ones that just had their name on it, maybe they had a Tensai, it would say like by Titleist or for Titleist on it. Made for shafts, So they were doing the same thing. They would paint it the same, but it would be much more obvious to tell the difference.
And shaft tech, just a slight tangent there, has changed so much from this shaft, which is 10 years old, 20 years old maybe?
20 years old, if that shaft is still in your bag, then you have bigger problems
that
than not having a
65 grams, and you see how it's titled ultralight? I mean,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
not even close to ultralight.
That's a heavy
anymore.
shaft by today's standards.
It is like a heavy stock shaft. So things have changed. Know that what sort of shaft you get and the tech that you get in it is important. But trying to match the same materials and the same type of shaft a tour player uses isn't what you should be chasing. You actually want to chase, how does the tour player hit a ball? That tends to be a launch of a certain number, somewhere between 10 and 13 typically, and the spin rate is 2,500 or less. That's what you're trying to copy as a person getting fit for a driver, not using the exact same shaft. And you can do that with a host of different ways. It's usually easier to do with a stock shaft.
Yep. So you're starting to see similar trends now too. Let's actually even go one further back. So there was even a time where the manufacturers would take a genuine aftermarket shaft, but then they would actually paint it differently. So this is an interesting version here from Speeder 757 back in early 2000s. That was like the shaft on the market.
Yeah.
So what TaylorMade did then, they actually took that shaft. It was a upgrade shaft in their driver, but then they painted it their paint scheme.
Yep.
So then basically all the guys on tour would be playing the same paint scheme, and you really wouldn't know what it had.
Fred Couples might still play that same shaft, but he might still have those graphics on there. Just
Same silver and red?
It might be. Yeah.
So then you had a combination of the two. Then you would have the tour guys playing the shafts that were painted to look like a TaylorMade shaft, but then you would typically have your genuine, just standard issue TaylorMade shafts and everything else.
Yep.
But we're coming full circle now. So now Callaway is kind of going back to it, which I kind of like to a degree. They're making a shaft that is specifically designed for their B21 line, bringing the RCH name back. So RCH 96. 96 is not the weight. That is that is the year.
Yep. You were like 7 back then.
50.
I remember that one better than you.
55 is again not the year. That one is now the weight. But Callaway is bringing back the RCH shaft in their new B21 line. That'll make it easier in that particular line anyway to tell if you have the stock shaft for that driver, or on that one, again, you can go with your aftermarket models, but typically, like we're saying, that shaft is probably a good fit for a lot of people, but go through a fitting to really figure that out.
Well, and Callaway's gotten savvy with shafts, and they've partnered with a major shaft manufacturer to make that with them. So
correct. So your OEM stock shafts of today are way better than what you would have got back in the RCH 96 days or your Titleist ultralight days.
Correct. So that's where it's, I would say maybe 20 years ago, it was so important to get a good quality shaft because you couldn't get them in golf clubs. It didn't exist from the manufacturers. Now the manufacturers have, one, so many options that you can find plenty of good ones in their lines that fit everybody, and two, they're really good quality. There isn't a garbage shaft that's being put into any of these drivers that hang up on the wall anymore. That's not the case.
Stock shafts today look way cooler than the 96. It has a black shaft with white lettering.
I like the all black with the retro Richard C. Helmstetter.
Were you a strong flex?
RCH, yeah, they didn't do X's back then. It was strong.
I'm not sure it was strong. Was strong an X?
Firm was stiff, yes.
I remember firm. Yep. All right. So then you have, again, the options of your basically 4 Callaway, 4 manufacturer shafts that are made, again, by your predominant shaft manufacturers. But then you do also have some other manufacturers that are just adding your essentially upgraded shafts as the stock shaft. So there are some manufacturers, so we have a couple just Titleist ones here where the shaft that you can get, you can do that one. That one's a genuine Tensai Blue. It's the new Tensai Blue Raw, I believe is the name on that one. And that is a legitimate aftermarket shaft where if you were just buying that, say, through a component retailer, paying a couple $100 probably for just that shaft.
Oh, more than that. This is probably like a $300 shaft.
Similar story then, Hazardous Smoke, just a newer version of the Hazardous. Same story on that one. Or even some of the manufacturers, Titleist being one of them, doing a cool job now of actually offering your upgrade shafts that would traditionally be like a $350, almost $400 upgrade. If this is the route you want to go and this is the one that works best for you, you can do some of your graphite design shafts at a lower price point. So while they are more expensive than, say, the just stock upgraded shaft, the $0 upgrade, I like to call those ones, there is at least a way to get into the super high-end shafts at least a lower price point. Yep. You know, at a place like GOLFTEC, obviously.
Yep. Let's reiterate that one more time because I think this is cool. The way that you used to buy drivers like this, that you don't have to do anymore. You don't have to do this. You don't have to go to a boutique fitter, buy a driver, which is the head, grip, and shaft for, say, $550, which is what that Titleist driver could cost. Then buy a $300 or $400 shaft on top of the $550 and put that into the old club head that would have to be pulled apart.
And then you're also paying to put it together.
Pop that back in. Now you're at $950.
Yeah, so you have a $1,000 driver, you can effectively do that same thing now for, $700, $750 if that is what you need.
And now you can, the way that you do that now is you buy that same Titleist driver, which is $550. That's the cost of it. It's got a bunch of cool tech in it and an awesome titanium. But instead of paying $400, popping the shaft out, putting that shaft in, recutting the whole thing, swing weighting that, hoping you get that process well done, and now it's $950. Titleist will just take out that middleman work and put it in for you, the same exact shaft, and they'll do it instead of $400 for $200. It's a really good deal.
Yep, you can get the same thing if the upgraded shaft is what you want or what you need.
Yep.
Do the same thing and save up a couple $100 in the process.
Yeah, so we're always after getting people the best fit we can so the driver works well for you, that your clubs aren't holding you back. A lot of people want to get the super expensive, super cool shafts because you want to look cool, or you just want it, or you've seen somebody play on TV and that's the one for you. Cool, we can offer you that too. But unless you have that sort of desire to go out and find that shaft and spend a ton of money that maybe isn't necessary to just have that cool looking shaft that'll make you unique, or you just want that one for sure, you don't have to do that option. And I would tell people that they're probably have better options for your cash. So if you want to spend it, cool, I totally get that. There are tons of cool things people just like to buy, but you don't have to.
Yeah, and I think along those same lines, though, you don't want to go the total opposite end of the spectrum either and just grab something off the rack and hope it's right for you.
No.
I think that middle ground is really where you need to live, which is find a fitter that can get you the correct shaft, get the right length. The specs are probably one of the most overlooked parts a lot of people miss.
Oh, sure.
Where just their driver shaft is way too long 99% of the time.
Lofts are wrong, shafts are too long for sure, the grips are too small. It's just making it so much harder to go out there and play good golf. So for a minimal investment, to make sure that you get the right RCH shaft or the right ADI shaft and get some options on how much to spend. It shouldn't just be, here's one shaft, here's the driver for you, it's $1,000, you have no choices, this is it. That isn't fair or right to the consumer either. It's a way you can buy your clubs, but it's not, at least in my opinion, the best way.
Yeah, have a couple different options, test them out, and kind of see how they perform.
Okay, is that it? You got slides?
I think so. Let's find out
We
what else
had
we
like
have.
50
Think it's
more.
going to turn black? I think we got one more.
You're going to bore everybody there.
Oh, we got one
yeah,
more.
See?
Look at this.
I told you to put this one in there. How'd you forget?
I know. I totally forgot because I didn't think it fit, but let's see if you're right.
Well, you want to tell the story?
So this is a ping shaft. This is the Alta CB. Is it a cavity back shaft?
No. Doesn't have any T's either.
Doesn't have any T's. Question if it's any good then. So CB with the ping Alta shaft stands for counterbalanced.
Yes.
So what they're doing with some of these now, and you see this especially through Ping, but a lot of the others, even just shaft manufacturers, have started making more and more drivers like this in the last probably 5 years, is just moving that balance point higher and higher up the club shaft. So say if it was just in the dead nuts middle of the shaft to start with, now it's creeping closer and closer to the grip to help offset some of the head weight. So it allows some of the manufacturers to have a heavier head, but with that counterbalanced shaft to then make it still perform like a lighter weight.
Yeah, so then you've got a higher MOI driver potentially that way. You're not really compromising how fast you swing it. That Tensai orange is pretty famous for having a little counterbalancing. I wanted you to put this one in there though because I think the idea, there's such a misnomer that stock shafts are the ones that are made with the OEMs but made by like really good shaft manufacturers aren't good. And we keep beating that to death here, that they're just fine for most people. But this is an example of some really cool tech of counterbalancing the shaft, putting more weight up here in the grip end of the club. And that concept, which I really like, and Ping is doing that themselves. So you don't even need to go chasing down an aftermarket shaft if you want to try something that's counterbalanced. That Ping shaft is really good. Now I think we're done.
I think I am done now.
You should check, just make sure there's nothing else. Oh, good,
we're
we're
good.
done for today.
Out of
That's
shafts to talk about.
Yeah.
So in a recap?
No, you got it.
All right.
OEM shafts are the OEM stock shafts that you see hanging on different clubs, and they might have all sorts of different shafts. OEM stock doesn't mean there's just one shaft. There are tons of shafts.
Yeah, different models, different weights,
Different
flexes.
colors, different levels of coolness when you look at it. Then you get to pick that. That's cool. That's really nice that you have all these different options from the OEM, but the best way to determine which one's right for you and not have a bunch of ornaments in your garage is to get fit. So still going to end it on that. You need to get fit. But don't think that if your fitter finds a stock shaft that doesn't cost you anything extra for an upcharge that you're not getting a good service. Chances are that is perfectly fine for your game.
Yep, probably found the one that's right for you and saved you a couple $100 in the process.
Exactly. Well, thanks, Brad. I'm sure this has been informative for everyone except for me. I thought that was kind of boring.
Hey, now you know that
You did
the
nail
more
that joke,
tease,
though.
the better.
You did nail that one. It was a good pause afterwards. That was impressive. Anyway, thanks for joining us. Try some stock shafts.